This is the Mighty Books Podcast. This week's featured author is Dr. Daniel Dimond. Dr. Dimond founded and serves as a director of the nation's first state-affiliated medical disaster response team, and he has responded to a variety of international disasters. Following Hurricane Katrina, he played a strategic role as director of the Mass Casualty Triage Unit at the New Orleans Convention Center. He has interviewed on CNN, Larry King Live, and Anderson Cooper. He is a member of the National Speakers Association and the past president of NSA Northwest. As an experienced family physician and an award-winning educator, Dan Dimond delivers practical information with creativity and skill. Participants experience learning through a variety of effective strategies that foster rapid mastery of new information. Well known for creating an exciting learning environment, Dr. Dimond engages the mind of the learner, leaving participants with an experience and information they will never forget. After earning his medical degree from the University of Washington, Dr. Dimond completed his residency in family medicine in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The American Academy of Family Physicians awarded Dr. Dimond the degree of fellow, and he is board certified with the American Board of Family Physicians. Dr. Dimond is a clinical assistant professor at the University of Washington School of Medicine. In 2010, the American Red Cross gave him the Real Hero Award, and he also received the Washington State Governor's Award of Excellence for his work in Haiti. In 2014, Dr. Dimond received the President's Volunteer Service Award from President Obama, and he also received the Quality of Care Lifetime Achievement Award, Healthcare Heroes. Dr. Dimond and his wife Debbie enjoy their 3 children, Paul, Josh, and Sarah. The Dimond family is big on traditions, humor, and love. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. To me, we have Dr. Daniel Dimond. Dr. D, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. It's awesome to be able to hang out with you and spend some time with you, my friend.
I agree. We got.
How long have I known you, really?
Probably my whole life, I believe.
I think so.
About 33 years and
like
change.
Yeah,
and change. We could boil it down to the hour, but I don't think we need to do that. Not today, at least. So we're here to talk about your book, Beyond Resilience. I've had a chance to read about half your book so far, and it's astounding. For those listeners who do not know what Beyond Resilience is about, could you go in a little bit for us?
Yeah, I came back from Hurricane Katrina. I was the director of the medical triage unit there. And it was by far the craziest experience of my entire life. Not by a little bit. It was crazy. But I came home. Anderson Cooper was asking the question over and over again, why are there so many victims? Why are there so many victims? I was asking a different question. I was asking the question, what is it about some of these people that they don't become victims? Because that's actually helpful. At least for me, and I remember thinking, what would I do if I lost my Palm Trio? That's what we had back then, before we had iPhones.
Okay.
These little, you don't even know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
Even more fun. We had Palm Pilots, and then it was really cool. We had the Palm Trio that had a keyboard on it and stuff. We could send emails and make phone calls and stuff with it. But I started thinking, man, what would I do if I lost my stuff? Would I end up being a victim? It's one thing to go into a disaster and I bring my stuff, but if I lost my home, my family, my cars, everything, would I be a victim? And I don't know. So I thought, well, I want to understand how it is that some of these people think in a way that they show up that despite losing everything, they still are fully engaged, leaving a legacy and making a difference in the lives of other people. Because when I grow up, I want to be like them. So that was the beginning of my quest.
So I'm assuming that's what, with going down and dealing with Katrina, that's what decided I'm going to jump into this and write myself a book to start. Is that what dove you into research, or you just kind of come off the top of your head and just all observation?
Yeah, I did a lot of thinking, that's for sure. And then Haiti hit.
Oh, okay.
So that was massive. That was devastating. I always come home from a disaster, and I've been to lots of them now, and I try to give it a word. Like Katrina was just bizarre. I saw some of the strangest things I've ever seen human beings do.
What kind of bizarre things happened?
Well, I mean, I'm outgoing. I'll talk to people in elevators. I'm not shy. So I'm in the midst of doing all this work, and we have helicopters taking off around us, and the 82nd Airborne guys are there protecting us with their machine guns because there were people shooting at the good guys that were trying to help. It was just. I mean, I didn't get shot at, but it was going on out there, so it was really bizarre.
Hmm.
Um, you start thinking, could this get any weirder than what it is? And then one of my staff comes up and says, "Hey, Dimond, this lady over there says she can swallow a snake."
What?
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm not shy. I go over and I say, "Hey, I understand that you can swallow a snake." And she says in this deep voice, "I sure can." That's just not right. Do you have one? She goes, "I sure do." And she reaches into her purse, pulls out a snake that's about 2 inches in diameter and about 3 feet long, swallows it, pulls it back out, and swallows it again. I saw it with my own eyes. I even have pictures. Like, really? You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
What? I mean, I guess the same. What the heck are you thinking? Kind of comes from the same people who are swallowing swords, but a snake.
A snake, yeah. And if the snake ever wished it had arms.
Oh, it's a good time to wish it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
What?
So I mean, Haiti's word was devastating.
Yeah.
I cried. I cried for a couple months after I came home from Haiti.
Oh my goodness.
Earthquakes are horrible because there's no warning. When you have a typhoon or hurricane, you get a warning. But with earthquakes, it crushes people.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know the difference between a hurricane and a typhoon?
You know what? I don't. The only thing I've noticed, I thought hurricanes were like this northern hemisphere and typhoons were southern hemisphere.
You're close.
Okay.
Hurricanes are Atlantic and typhoons are Pacific.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Interesting. What feeds them more hot air or
who knows, man? But that's
okay. Okay.
It's just where they're located is how they get their names.
Okay. That's kind of
Who
what
would
I
have known?
figured.
I had to look that one up.
Who knows? I'll look it up later.
Sure.
Or I won't. I'll just take your word for it.
Yeah, just take my word for it. It's true.
Yeah. You got the title doctor before your name, so I'm gonna assume everything you say
Makes
is
me an
100%
expert
true.
on typhoons and hurricanes.
Oh yeah, you might be a doctor on typhoons. We don't know until it says MD, which yours does. The different story. So in your book, I loved the parts on mindsets. So thriver, manipulator, victim. Could you go into like your experience in those different sets of mindsets, not just in disaster situations, but in working situations?
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought it's 4 different ways that people show up. There's 4 different types of people. Yes, I remember this woman that was being interviewed on CNN, and she's yelling and screaming, "When is George Bush going to bring me my food?" Well, George is not. He's busy. And Julian Rodder, back in the 50s, came up with this idea of locus of control, that victims have an external locus of control. All the power is external to them. So how could you expect them to do anything? What's she supposed to do? Go, grow some potatoes or something? It's like, so from her perspective, of course, George has to bring her food.
Right.
Yeah. But that wasn't the whole story. It took me a while to figure this out. I mean, some serious sitting there pondering, trying to figure out and noodling and writing stuff out and sketching and all this stuff. The other dimension of a victim, besides their power, is purpose. And victims see themselves as takers, or they may not be aware of it. But she was holding her little daughter's hand. She wasn't saying, "When is George Bush going to bring my daughter some food?" It was just, "When is George Bush going to bring me my food?"
Yeah. Very
Wow.
self-centered.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And victims actually will suck you dry.
Mm-hmm.
They use up resources. They use up energy. They'll exhaust your people. And this was all fine from a model perspective until I realized that this was not 4 different types of people. It's 4 different types of mindsets.
Right.
And I will tell you, my favorite mindset to go to when I'm stressed out is the victim mindset. It's delicious. It is so delicious. I can get you to, if you're my boss, give me a day off or a couple days off. I can get out of doing stuff. I can get hugs from people. I can come home and my wife's like, "How was work?" I said, "Oh my gosh, it was so hard." So hard. It's cranky people today. We're running late all day, got a headache, don't feel very good, feel like the gravity's going up and I'm getting crushed.
Yeah.
And she says, well, just sit on the couch. It's okay. I'll clean up the kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. And I'm going, yeah, score. Victim mindset is delicious. It's just not very fulfilling.
Right.
Now, in the book, I talked about the manipulator mindset, but I've changed it since then when I'm telling people. I describe this one now as the controller mindset. It's a better word. I just haven't done a second edition of the book yet. People don't self-identify as a manipulator, but they'll go, oh, yeah, sometimes I'm controlling. And there's people in Katrina, like I said, that were shooting at the rescue people.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. You're going to shoot at the people you're dependent upon for your own rescue. That's like dumb.
Yeah, it is.
and then one day I had this little conversation with myself. I was like, hey, dude, you ever look at your wife? You ever shoot a comment at your kids? And go, yeah, I do that. You ever shoot an email at the people that work for you?
Yeah.
It was all about you. Yeah, I've done that. Oh, yeah. So sometimes I use the controller mindset.
Yeah.
That's the one that's the powerful taker.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a 2x2 chart that that's in the book. The lower right is the bystander.
Mm-hmm.
Their heart's in the right place. They're still givers. They just don't think that they have what it takes. And so they see themselves as powerless and they say things like, oh my gosh, somebody should do something.
Right.
It's like you look at all this stuff that just happened with Ian in Florida. Oh man, somebody should do something. Well, let me just tell you, everybody can give a little bit of money.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, when we were in Haiti, we had, there was some well-meaning people that sent airplanes full of blankets to Haiti in the Caribbean. Blankets.
At first, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense, blankets, but Caribbean.
That doesn't make sense. That's not what they need, but we think we know what they need.
Yeah.
And so what happens is those airplanes fly into the airport, not realizing that there's no fuel for them to refuel their planes. And so now the planes that have the stuff that people need can't land.
Oh, no.
So it gets to be a real mess. So yeah, if you want to support people in disasters, send money. Go to medicalteams.org.
Okay. So along with mindset in your book, you also talk about target fixation. The little story that I absolutely loved. I actually laughed at it when I read it. The Devil's Gold story.
Oh,
can you go into that?
There's been more since then.
Has there?
Oh yeah. It's like you'd think that I would remember this lesson, but you go where you look.
You do.
So like if you're going between two trees and it's narrow and you say, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, and you're looking at the tree, you're going to hit the tree.
Yeah.
Like if my shoulder had lips, it would tell you he hits the tree. And I was riding up in the Olympics on Gold Creek Trail, and it's narrow stuff. Like I don't do narrow stuff. I don't like it, and so it freaks me out. Like I don't want to go slide down the bank. No. And I got just a little bit too close to the edge and went wham! It came down on my elbow, it tore the skin on my elbow, and then I got this new electric mountain bike, which is awesome. So I lift this thing up on the trail, and then I'm climbing up on the trail, trying to get on, so I'm holding on to the bike, and I put my arm down on the brake and got a third degree burn. Like, dude, it's like you go where you look.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but the last couple of years have been a little brutal with all this COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And you think about all the divisive stuff that's on the news. By the way, an interesting book is State of Fear by Crichton, the guy that did Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
He said there's 3 groups that benefit from keeping us in a constant state of fear: the politicians, the media, and the lawyers.
There you go. So
maybe how we feel is somewhat intentional by those 3 groups.
Mm-hmm.
You start going, man, you wake up and start thinking about all the negative stuff that's going on. Sometimes I just have to say, I'm done with watching the news. I don't watch it anymore. Now I read it, but even then I read it and I still go, oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
How helpful is that?
The narrative is not positive.
Yeah. If I go in the direction that I'm looking, I know that's true.
Yeah.
And I'm focusing on all the negative junk.
Mm-hmm.
If you wake up in the morning, you go, oh man, I'm tired. Life sucks. The world's coming to an end. The politicians are destroying everything. the economy's and I just spin down into this stuff, then the whole world becomes heavier and you end up going just spiraling down into this thing. We see this in disaster stuff all the time. When you focus on everything that's wrong,
Yeah.
it makes it really hard to get it fixed.
The negativity, and I've always said negativity is like a cancer. It just spreads and it just kills morale. And I was always one that I always came in. I don't know what the deal was with just good genetics or good mindset. I don't know what to tell you. You know my family.
Yeah.
We're pretty positive people. Coming in to do scut garbage work. It's just not really fun to do. You come in and you know what? We're gonna make a joke of this. We're gonna have a good time anyway. We're gonna joke around, pal around. We're gonna get it done because it's got to get done, but we're gonna have fun doing it. And I tended to. It didn't reach everybody, but it tended on to the people that needed that little positive kick. But we were good buddies. We were great, great coworkers. We got along. We knocked stuff out. We were having a great time. And it was just, you're going to work and hang out with your buddies at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's amazing how many people have forgot that lesson or they never learned it.
Yes.
And it's a hard one to learn if you're not suffering.
Yes.
You can either look at it like, what's with all this stuff? Or you just go, well, poop is fertilizer.
It is.
It makes you grow. That's what it's made out of. My dad told me you're not supposed to pick up that stuff and eat it, though. He said, go out there and fertilize the lawn, but don't eat it.
Right. Dogs do, which is odd. But so I don't know if they're just wiser or just, I don't know, they're just little, their palate is well developed.
Why. You're supposed to feed your dog so they don't have to do that.
I know, right? Mine still doesn't walk around and, this looks delicious. Let me have a taste of that. That's gross. That's what that is.
Oh man. Yeah. I think this has been one of the most difficult lessons to learn and relearn with everything that's going on with COVID.
Yeah.
I have to look at where I want to go, not the problem. I have a new model now. And, since this is a podcast, I'll have to draw this model for you with my voice.
Ooh.
So think about an upside down triangle. Point is down.
Got it.
At the bottom part is the word sit. So when somebody comes to me and says, hey, we're really struggling with this deal, the first thing that I want to do is not come in and say, well, here's what you ought to do. Mm-hmm. I got an answer for you. I got a solution. Man, I'm really smart. Nah. First thing I want to do is just sit down next to them. I say, tell me about it. What's it feel like? How are you feeling? How's this thing impacted you? So that they know that I know, and we're connected at the heart before we do anything else.
Right.
So after sit, the next line up is stand. But it's not me standing, it's we standing.
Okay.
So say, hey, let's stand up for a second and let's look at this from some altitude. When we look at it from up here, what do you think this thing is really all about? And I don't want to do that by myself. I want to do it with them, shoulder to shoulder. Let's stand up together. Look at this. The next thing after sit and stand is shift. So instead of, I don't want to hit the tree, I don't want to hit the tree, I don't want to hit the tree, we'll talk about how are you going to ride this trail? That's a better question. Not what's going to happen if you go off the cliff like I did at Devil's Gulch, Man, that was painful too.
I bet.
So it's the questions that we ask are fateful. And that's a quote from David Cooperrider, the guy that started Appreciative Inquiry. So at that shift point, what I want to do is not say, how do we fix your problem, but what's the abundant opposite of your problem?
Okay.
My favorite example is I was working with a healthcare system that was in the bottom 25th percentile for patients falling out of bed. And the federal government will ding you for that, by the way. Yeah, they cut back on the amount they're going to reimburse you because people are falling out of beds. And so they formed a committee, of course, and they called the committee the Fall Committee. I said, seriously, what do you guys do at your meetings? You fall down? Why'd you do this? So I said, well, what's the opposite of patients falling out of bed? And most people would say, well, the opposite of patients falling out of bed is patients staying in bed. Yeah. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
How about this? The opposite of patients falling out of bed is great mobility.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, your eyebrows just went up. When I'm doing this, talking about this stuff in front of big crowds.
Yeah.
I share this. Like I did an event last week with about 1,700 people. Oh, when I say stuff like that, their eyebrows go, you can feel this wind coming at you from the eyebrows. Yeah, great mobility. Well, If you ask, how can you keep people from falling out of bed? When I was a medical student, we used 5-point leather restraints. You could tip your bed over, and I saw it happen, but you're not going to fall out of it.
That's very
You are
true.
strapped to it. But then the feds went, well, that's not so nice. We're going to give you a bunch of paperwork you have to fill out if you're going to detain people like that. So
Sure.
we quit doing that. But they came up with mandatory nurse rounds.
Okay.
Every hour they got to come in there. Hey, Ryan, do you have to pee or poop?
Oh my
Sorry to
gosh.
wake you up. Don't get out of bed without me. Every hour.
That's
Now, that
insane.
doesn't work.
No.
So, a couple years ago, I had a quadruple bypass. The day after they cut me in half with a chainsaw, they had me up walking.
Holy crap.
Up walking with a stand-up walker that was, it was underneath my arms, standing up. It was like some dude invented the stand-up walker because he was asking a different question. He wasn't asking, how do we keep him in bed? He was asking, what can we do to get Dimond out of bed so we can get him out of here because he's driving us nuts? It's a better question. So this idea of target fixation, we go where we look, we got to be really careful that we're asking the right questions. And that's a lot of the work that I'm doing now with organizations, is coming in and leading them through this appreciative inquiry approach of how do we take the best of what was and the best of what is and co-create the best of what could be. It's really a cool process.
Wow. Now you speak to all sorts of, thousands of people.
All sorts of different organizations. I did some work with Virgin. I've done work with Facebook, and
you've been doing that for quite a while now.
Yeah, it's awesome. I got to do an event with some cybersecurity dudes in Ukraine recently.
Wow.
That was just enlightening.
Yeah.
I learned from them.
I think that's the best way about it when you're, teaching or speaking. If you're not only, if it's in a, where you can actually have two-way conversations, that's the best way is, I'm giving you the information you wanted me here for, but I'm also learning about your life, about your experiences. If they both come away from that conversation learning something, you've done your job. Everyone.
I realized after going through a training with an organization called Exchange, there's no E, just Exchange. It's exchangeapproach.com, that there's more wisdom in the room than there is in my head. And that was kind of an ego blower. It's like, oh, dang, man, I thought I had all the answers. No, I don't have all the answers. What I'm really good at, though, is bringing people together, creating psychological safety, and then unlocking this collective wisdom in the group so we can design some really cool stuff.
Well, that's awesome.
It's such a different way to facilitate and a different way to teach. When I was a medical student, and pretty much this is how medical school still is, it's usually somebody talking and you take notes. And it's passive. I mean, that's why people are burned out with Zoom meetings. It's usually just a talking head.
Yep.
And the worst thing is when they say, I know you can't read this slide. It's like, well, then don't show me the slide, dude. But we're better off shortening that amount of, here's some ideas, and then saying, now we want to choreograph a conversation. So we're going to get you in groups and have you actually wrestle with how might you be able to take this stuff and apply it to your workplace? What would that look like? It's really a cool process.
I know from my experience with unfortunately having to do a lot of Zoom meetings for work and other like trainings, I have found it greatly more helpful when I have the opportunity to go to chat with the other umpteen people we got in the room. We break it down from like 30 to 5 or 6, and you spend 30 minutes talking to each other. Usually the first 20 minutes just spitballing, learning about each other. But then you start getting down to the nitty gritty and kind of almost become like a little mastermind group.
Yeah, it's like, powerful.
It is.
Really,
it is. When you're all working together for one goal, you can't beat that.
Yeah, especially if people show up with the thriver mindset, which is the fourth one. It's the powerful giver that says, I have the power to make a difference. It's not about me, and I don't care who gets the credit.
Right.
People like that show up, and you're in a conversation with them, and you're trying to figure out, how do we make a vibrant culture? By the way, resilience is not the goal. In material science, that's when you bend something and it goes back to its original shape. The original shape is going to be toast. It's like, we cannot go back to where we were before. What we need to do now is say, man, we went through a thing. How do we take all the lessons that we learned from what we just went through and create this incredible future based on the stuff we just learned? I'm not at all interested in, I just want to survive. You can bend me, but I just want to go back to where I was before. No, that's why I titled my book Beyond Resilience. Trench tested tools to thrive under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to
And
do. Is I want to help organizations thrive,
yeah,
help people
and
thrive.
so what's the feedback you're getting from folks?
Oh,
They're loving it.
it's been great. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm having a great time doing these events and great time working with people because people right now are trying to figure out how do we do this? You know what happened here in our local community that we had cyberware in Epic, the electronic medical records, shut the hospital
Mm-hmm.
system down.
Oh,
The ER had 95 people waiting to be seen. So the ER nurse called 911.
oh no.
Yeah,
Oh
like
no.
what? So how do we thrive in a situation like that?
Yeah, you need someone with some interesting solutions, or
Yeah,
people asking those
how do we come
questions.
together as a community?
Yeah. How do we grapple around this problem and fix the problem, and then hopefully it doesn't, prevent this from happening again? Working
One of the
together.
greatest lessons that I learned at in Typhoon Yolanda, which was in the Philippines. I have massive respect and I will tell you some envy for the Filipinos because their culture is amazing. Like the rest of the world ought to go, how do you do it? Because
Yeah.
they're having earthquakes, volcanoes, typhoons, a pandemic, electricity shortages. I mean, they have all this stuff that goes on over and over and over again. When I was down there for Yolanda, the thing that just made my jaw fall off my face was the wind hardly stops blowing and they're at each other's houses. They're like, hey, Ryan, are you okay? Is your family all right? We're cooking some rice. Bring your clan over. We'll eat some rice together and we'll figure out whose house we're going to rebuild first.
Wow.
It's not who's going to help me. When's FEMA coming? I mean,
Yeah.
FEMA's important. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you've lost your home, you need help from the feds. That's awesome. But I also ought to be at my neighbor's house saying, "Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you good? What can I do to help you? Let's come together
Yeah.
because together we're stronger." So, man, I was like, if you're ever in a bind, call a Filipino because they get the power of we.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed out to me yesterday, as a matter of fact, that if you take the M in me and just flip it over, it becomes the W in we.
It does.
And thought about that, but there's another visual for you on a podcast.
Yep. Flip me to we. I've actually heard someone say that before, and I do like that term. Well, that reminds me of the story in your book about individual who got trapped on their roof and decided that he wasn't going to sit there and do nothing about it. So he just started swimming from house to house, trying to find,
Sergeant Bailey.
trying to find somebody to either connect with. Because at that point, he's like, he could sit here and stew and waiting for someone to come get him, the victim, or he can go find somebody. And he ended up finding a Vietnamese family, who had a boat.
Yeah, well, they found him.
Oh, they found him. Okay.
They were out in the boat
and they
rescuing
found him.
people, and they came around the corner. And there's Sergeant Bailey swimming in the water, and they rescued him. And then they went and they saved the lives of over 400 people, man.
That's insane.
Thrivers. And you didn't hear about them.
No.
Except in the book. They weren't on CNN. They weren't out there like, well, we did a great thing. No, they were just helping people.
Yeah.
Just helping people. There was a bunch of people like that in Katrina. Like, how? Man, how come? I actually saw Anderson Cooper in Haiti, and I said, Anderson, I got this idea, man. After spending time with you in Katrina, why don't we do a show where we look at the people that are thriving despite their tremendous loss,
mm-hmm.
and let's take a deep dive on their lives. Let's follow them. Let's see them now, ask them how they're doing, and then let's follow them for a year and see how they rebuild. Let's celebrate those people. We got enough disasters and junk going on right now. We ought to be able to find them. And he said, yeah, that's an idea. That was right before he came out with his Heroes program. He didn't have quite that design to it, but I still think there's a story. It's interesting. I think the reason that we have TV shows like Hoarders
mm-hmm.
is because if you ever don't want to clean your garage,
mm-hmm.
you just sit down and watch Hoarders and you go, ooh, dang. I thought my garage was bad. My garage is actually pretty good. I think I'm good. It's going to be fine. What happens if you have a TV show and some guy's showing you how to make your garage like incredible, where everything's got a place? Then I'm going, dang, I got to get off the couch.
Elevating yourself to something better.
Yeah, so
And
I guess it goes back to it being delicious again.
yeah,
It's easier for me to sit sit in front of the TV and watch in a disaster and go, oh, those poor people, somebody
right.
should do something.
Yeah.
Look
Well,
at that.
what you said just kind of made me think of, so my kiddos are, doing soccer now and having a good time. Well, my oldest son is on a team, and one of his teammates is very talented, very talented. His footwork is amazing. He's quick. He's fast thinking. So the very beginning of the year, all the other kids who are playing, not nearly as talented or as well instructed as this kid. Over the course of the last 2 months, I have seen an elevation because they're asking him how he does things. They're emulating what he does. They are wanting to match his skill. It's nothing about ego. No one's getting upset about not being able to do it right away.
Yeah.
This is the kind of wisdom of children. In a matter of fact, they're just, hey, he's here. We should want to go be better and do better. And sure enough, the kids have done astoundingly well over the past 2 months of just their skill. They're not matching his yet, but they are not sitting in one place. They are beyond resilient, I guess
Yeah.
you put it. So
it's interesting when you have conversations with people about the culture where they work. One of my questions I like to ask is, where does culture start? And it starts here in my heart, in my soul, before I ever get to work. Because how I show up at work will change the people around me.
mm-hmm.
And it starts spreading through this whole complexity theory about how organizations work. It's like the neural network in your brain. It's always making new connections and then pruning the ones it doesn't need. So it's always changing this electrical patterns in the brain. When I went to medical school, they said, your brain is what it is when you're about 16 years old, and then it just deteriorates disintegrates from there. I'm like, oh, come on, help me. It's not true. There's this stuff called brain-derived neurotrophic factor that when that stuff's doing its thing, we're making new connections in our brain and building these communications between these different nodes and then pruning off the ones we don't need. And that same stuff happens in an organization. You could have a knucklehead for a CEO and still have a great culture if you have a handful of people that are willing to say, no, we're going to make this place into an incredible place.
Mm-hmm.
If in the middle of a disaster, I did a TEDx talk about a guy named Augie. And in the midst of all that stuff going on, he was making a tremendous impact on, he's one of my life heroes.
Yeah.
And I'm a better guy because Augie showed up the way he showed up, and I'll never forget him. It's like, man, it was great.
That's awesome.
And he lost everything, and he still blew me away. So you think, I worked with this guy named Brandon Gherkin, the pickle man. He was my medical assistant. He's trying to get into medical school now. He's a great guy. He's over at WSU, go Cougs. And Gherkin, I'd walk in, and Gherkin would say, hey, Dr. D, great to see you, man. What can I do to make your life great today? I'm like, oh, man, what a great way to start the day. I was thinking maybe if we just tweak these couple of things here, it might make the whole thing run a little bit better. He said, done deal. And then I have to say it because he just changed the whole atmosphere. I can't just go do my thing. I got to say, well, what can I do to make your life great?
Yeah.
And he said, well, if you check this one box in the electronic medical records, it saves us 10 on the backside.
Mm-hmm.
I said, done deal. Nice. Who wins?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
He wins. I win. The patients win.
Yeah.
The whole thing. It's like, who changed the culture that day?
Right. Well,
the pickle man did. He shows up like, yeah, dude, how's like one person?
That reminds me of so when I was going through college, learning about I want to say it was sociology, and the very bare bones basic of culture or governance, I guess even, was reciprocity.
Yeah.
And it was so if you and I are in a community, it's small. It's usually a very informal area. It's like you and me and 3 others are in a community. Well, you have a house fire. Well, I'm going to go help you rebuild your house, get your family back together, not because, you're doing something for me, but because it's the right thing to do. And then I know that if something ever happens to me and my family, you'll be there to help too. And it's just how the culture works. So I thought it's a very basic, very bare bones, very actually emotion filled, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, kind of mindset there. So you said you're doing a second book or a revision into book for this one?
Well, yeah, I'm doing a second. I got to do the second edition of that one just so I can do the fix the manipulators into controllers.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm working on a book right now called Second String Starters from Sidelines to Significance.
Nice. And how's that coming along?
It's kind of been stalled out, but it's getting ready to be dusted off and digging back in because I've got a whole nother project that I'm launching right now with this called Turn the Chairs.
Okay.
But the Second String Starters is about this core belief that I have that God prefers to use this second string.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the opening 3 sentences, you know, Mrs. Clark, I think I shared this with you before. Mrs. Clark, my English teacher, said that some sentences are so powerful they get to be their own paragraph.
Yeah.
First sentence, he was a foster kid.
Mm-hmm.
Second paragraph, he stuttered. Third paragraph, he was a murderer. Like, you know, maybe you heard the story about this guy. Like he's got abandonment issues. He stutters, so he's getting bullied, and he's got a bit of an attitude. And then he sees a big guy beating on a little guy, and he goes nuts and beats the stink out of this guy, kills him, hides the body, and goes on the run.
Yeah.
And he's out in the middle of nowhere. And he sees something weird up ahead. Like, what the heck is that? And he gets up there, and it's a bush on fire. And God says, Moses, I want you to go set my people free. And I'm sure the angels in the war room are going, not Moses. He's a murderer. He can't even talk. He stutters. And he smells like sheep. You know, no, Moses? And then King David is the runt. You know, he's the 12th boy in his family. Prophet goes to his dad, Jesse, and says, one of your boys is going to be the next king. Well, it's got to be the oldest. Bring him in. He goes, no, it's not that one. He goes through all 11. And then he says, the prophet said, well, geez, don't you have anybody else? I mean, you would think the prophet would know, but it's because he's a prophet. But he's like, don't you have anybody else? And he says, well, yeah, I mean, there's David, but he's out tending sheep. Well, he ends up being the king. You got Peter denying Jesus, Paul murdering Christians, Matt's a tax collector of all people, and Jesus is hanging out with hookers, drunks, and stinky fishermen.
Right.
There's no Kardashians in the story.
Mm-mm.
So I want to write this book about, or I am writing this book about this idea that God prefers to use the second string knuckleheads to go, not change the world, but to go love the world. So I'm excited. This book has been trying to get out of me for a long time now, but it's finally at the point where it needs to be for this other program.
Oh, that's awesome. And then let's turn the chairs. What, you mind talking about that real quick?
Well, yeah, it's this idea of culture is determined by the structure that we use. So why do we set up church like a movie theater? You know, when's the last time you walked out of a movie theater going, I feel so connected to the people in the movie? It doesn't happen. No. So why do we have church we sing 3 songs, have a TEDx talk, sing 2 songs, pass the plate and go home, and everybody goes, that was great today, wasn't it? But they don't walk out going, man, I made a new best friend. That was incredible. It was awesome. So
right.
I have this passion for let's redesign what church looks like.
Interesting.
Let's turn the chairs. Larry Crabb said, real church happens when we pick up the chairs and face each other.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine those big churches with work and anything. If you break it down and talk to each other like people and not just, you have someone on a pedestal and that person is talking. I mean, that has its place. Don't get me wrong. But to connect with others, to really make a difference, you want to boil it down to its lowest denominator and have a heart-to-heart with people.
Yeah, what's unstoppable love look like is what I'm always asking.
Yeah, that's
in the church, but also in an organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if I'm working with Costco, this is still the same question.
Mm-hmm.
What's unstoppable love look like? How do I show up and love the people on my team in a way that they know that I see them, I hear them, I provide space for them to be different than me.
Right.
And together we can get some stuff done.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
When you trust people, you can do anything. That's how it should be, especially at work, home and work. Got to be safe places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to be safe places.
And that has to happen through conversation.
That's how we communicate. We got to be able to have good, wholesome conversation with each other, honest conversation with each other, where we're not going to be worried about any punitive or or weird judgments, and just learning and growing from each other.
For sure.
That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, it's an exciting project. It's been really good.
Yeah,
Lots of work in the last week on
I'm
getting this
sure.
ready to go.
Yeah, awesome. I look forward to hearing some more about it later. Then,
Yeah, man.
heck yeah.
You have to come back for the second book.
Yeah. Oh, that is an extension is out there. An invitation is there for you. As soon as you're even close to done, we can get one of these going. No problem.
I'm about 25% in.
You know what? That's 25% more you had when you started.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know what? That's a lot. It takes a lot of effort and energy and work to get a book done. So, I mean, I commend you.
When you wrote your book, where did you write it?
Like, I wrote it at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrote it at home. Yeah. Well, I mean, I started the thing when I was like 15. So, and then I didn't finish it until I was almost a little over 30. So just because life gets busy, marriage, school, work, kids, and then
sleep.
I love sleep.
Yeah, you got to have sleep in there. Don't skip your sleep.
No, don't skip your sleep. People ask me, how do you sleep? You have kids and you're
laying
working.
Down. Man.
I'm like, I sleep at night when it gets dark, like everybody else. I just prioritize my time. Yeah. I go where I look.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
There you go. Full circle. So just it's people think you sit down for 30, for 3 to 4 hours a day and just write all the time. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how it works. I sit down for 20 minutes. I've got a couple ideas, write a bit of dialogue, go back to doing what I got to do. Maybe I get an hour, maybe I get 20 minutes, maybe I get 30 seconds. And then you just do that for long enough. You got a piece of material there that is also called the book.
Yeah. Weird how that works.
It is just persistence. It's just, you want to do something right. You want to do it well. Keep doing it until it's done. That's really all it's about.
That's right. And realize that God prefers the second string knuckleheads.
Yeah. I am definitely a knucklehead. I'm told that quite often. Self-claimed knucklehead, in fact, actually.
That's right. Me too.
Yeah. There's hope for us. So at the end of the day, what do you want people to learn and gain from your book, Beyond Resilience?
The greatest point of that book is that we always have a choice. And there's two questions. When I'm in a high stress, high stakes environment, I want to ask myself, do I see myself as being powerful or powerless? Do I see myself as being a giver or taker? How do I want to show up? And sometimes I have to ask that question 30, 40, 50 times a day. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist, spent about 3 years in the concentration camps, lost most of his family. He said between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose. That's what I'm hoping people will take away from that book is I always have a choice. Now, when I was in medical school, they never told me between stimulus and response there's a space. I thought it was just stimulus, response, stimulus, response, stimulus, response. But when you realize there actually is a space, then you go, this thing happened. Just going to pause. How do I want to respond? Mm-hmm. Powerful or powerless? Giver or taker? Yeah. Am I going to be a victim? Am I going to be a controller? Am I going to be a bystander? Or am I going to choose to show up as a thriver? I looked up, and you're a word guy. You'll like this. So I was thinking the controller, the victim, and the bystander are not fulfilling. The victim mindset's very fulfilling. So I looked up the word fulfill. Where did we get this one? So it's from this old English word, fulfillin'. And it was a word they used to describe the process of loading the supplies on a ship to get it ready for a voyage.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're feeling like, man, I'm feeling empty right now, my supplies feel like I'm running low, it might just be because you're spending too much time in the victim, controller, or bystander mode. And maybe it's time to go, you know what? I have the power to make a difference. I'm going to go get involved. I'm going to just learn to pause, notice, and choose. And see see what I can do differently. How can I take care of my neighbors?
Yeah.
Is there something I can do? There's a lot of need out there right now and lots of opportunities for us if we're willing to show up, roll up our sleeves a little bit, or just stay at home and go, I'm so tired. No.
Yeah, you can do that, take a nap, whatever, but you're not doing much for yourself or your fellow man. Roll your sleeves up and get to work.
Take a lesson from the Filipinos, man. They bounce back. Oh my gosh, they bounce back.
So our last question here, where can people, get to contact you, maybe have you come and speak, but finally get a copy of your book or books.
Well, yeah, the book's on. Yeah, well, the second one's coming.
Mhm.
The book's on Amazon.
Okay.
And it's Beyond Resilience, Trench-Tested Tools to Thrive Under Pressure. You can get a hold of me at events@dandiamondmd.com or just go to the website, dandiamondmd.com.
Awesome. Well, Dan, this has been really great. Finally got to connect and do a podcast with you, do an episode with you. I've been so looking forward to this for many,
I know,
many
we've been
months.
trying to get this one on the books
Yeah.
for a long time.
I think we
It's good
chatted
stuff.
about in like February or
Yeah.
March maybe of
Yeah.
2022, and
Here we are.
we got it. Persistence.
There we go.
I'm anything but persistent. That's
Absolutely. You're
Oh,
beyond resilient, man. There you go.
Oh, there you go. You are yourself as well. From all the stuff I've heard you going through and doing and creating, I'm so very glad we got to have this conversation.
Thank you, my friend.
Yes.
I appreciate you.
You too. And for everyone at home, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation. Stay tuned for some more lovely stuff next week. Take care.
Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.